Hi, I'm Barrett Schultes, and this is my final world history assignment. So the first set of questions is on the French Revolution. The first question is, who made up the first, second, and third estate, and who paid the most taxes? The first estate was the clergy, the second estate was the nobility, and the third estate was the commoners, which were freed slaves and peasants. And the commoners were the group that ended up paying the most taxes. And the second question is, what was the start of the French Revolution? The start of the French Revolution was the storming of the Bastille prison by the revolutionaries in 1789. And the third question is, what was the Reign of Terror? The Reign of Terror was an 11-month period where anyone opposing the revolution was sent to death at the guillotine. And the fourth question is, how did the Reign of Terror end? It ended when Robespierre was arrested and executed in 1794 along with his Jacobean counterparts. The fifth question is, what was the Directory and why is it important? The Directory was a group of 5 directors who controlled political and economical aspects in France during the Revolution. And the Directory was important because they ended the Reign of Terror and they were overthrown by Napoleon in 1799. The Directory was also very corrupt, with many killings when they were in power for the 4 years. And the next set of questions is on Napoleonic France. And the first question is, what was the coup d'état? And the coup d'état was the overthrowing of the Directory rule by General Napoleon Bonaparte, which was the effective end of the French Revolution. The second question is, what was the significance of Napoleon crowning himself as emperor? It showed the world that Napoleon would not be controlled by anyone, including Rome, and he viewed himself as the highest authority, and he also did this when the Pope was in his presence. And the third question is, why was the Battle of Trafalgar important? It was one of the most important sea battles ever when Great Britain surprisingly defeated the Spanish Armada in France off the coast of Spain, which made Great Britain the most powerful naval force for about 100 years. And the fourth question is, why did Napoleon fall? Napoleon fell because he tried to have world domination when he failed miserably by trying to invade Russia, which led to his exile 2 years later. And the fifth question is, what was the Congress of Vienna? The Congress of Vienna was a series of negotiations for the balance of power in Europe after the Napoleonic Wars, and it was held from 1814 to 1815 in Austria. The next set of questions is on the Industrial Revolution. The first question is, where did the Industrial Revolution begin and why? It started in Great Britain because they had the financial resources like a central bank to fund it, and they also utilized the system of canals, which made it much easier to transport goods. And the second question is, what was the first industry to be industrialized and how was it? The first industry to be industrialized was the textile industry. The textile industrialization made small mechanics much more efficient, and it took away homemade textile manufacturers, so it's kind of neutral. The third question is, what role did rivers and streams play in the Industrial Revolution? They provided ideal locations for mills and allowed materials to be transported much easier. The fourth question is, how was the Industrial Revolution a series of chain reactions? The Industrial Revolution created more demand for goods, which encouraged production. As the demand for goods grew larger, so did manufacturers and factories, which kind of propelled the Industrial Revolution. The fifth question is, explain how transportation developed throughout the Industrial Revolution and why were these advancements important? Transportation developed in the Industrial Revolution due to new advances in technology, which created less demand for animal transportation, and also the invention of the steamboat engine tremendously influenced transportation developments. These advancements allowed trade to happen quicker, and the use of water transportation increased because of steamboats. And the sixth question is, did the Industrial Revolution end? Explain. And I said yes and no. Every day we are coming up with new ways to manufacture goods more efficiently than ever before. However, since most of our factories and industry are now in China, industry has dramatically shrunken in the US and Europe. And the last set of questions is on national unification in the arts. The first question is, define nationalism, and how can a sense of nationalism lead to the formation of a new state? Nationalism is a strong identification with one's home country and a strong support for the country's interests. And a sense of nationalism can create tension due to the radical belief toward other nations. It creates bias and anger, and this can provoke a group to take serious action for what they believe in, whether that is seceding or other actions. And the second question is, describe 3 important steps in the unification of Italy. The first step was the founding of the nationalist group Young Italy in 1831 by Mazzini. The second step was that Cavour provoked and encouraged revolt against the Austrians in the control of northern Italy. And the final step was the alliance of Cavour's army and Garibaldi's army, which unified Italy by giving southern Italy to Emmanuel II, who actually created the Kingdom of Italy. And the third question is, describe 3 important parts in the unification of Germany. The first step was the Congress of Vienna, which created the rivalry between the Austrian Empire and Prussia. The second step was Otto von Bismarck, believing that Prussia was meant to unify Germany. He built up the Prussian army with his, quote, blood and iron, which prepared Prussia for war. The last step was the Franco-Prussian War, which unified all German states for the first time to fight against France, and they won. And the fourth question is, how can a sense of nationalism lead to problems in a multinational state? Provide an example. Nationalism in a multinational state can be a problem because it creates a strong identification with the state and not the nation. An example of this would be the Soviet Union. The coup that overthrew Gorbachev provoked the secession of Latvia and Estonia, which arguably was a tipping point for the end of the Soviet Union. And the fifth question is, explain 3 general traits of Romanticism. Some general traits of Romanticism are one's expression of their emotions, a strong appreciation for nature, and to celebrate the idea of a person's imagination. And the sixth and final question is, with respect to the arts, what was realism and how can it be considered as a reaction to Romanticism? Realism was an artistic movement that depicted images to real life and practical. Realism completely contrasts Romanticism, and it promotes the idea of straightforward art in the ideas instead of promoting idealism and exaggerated art forms like Romanticism did. Thank you.